If you want to say Spanish is spoken here, we'd say se habla español aquí. Se habla español aquí. And this passive is called an incomplete passive. And that's because we are not saying who it is spoken by, and we don't need to, because this might be a sign in a shop, at a hotel reception, something like that, where we don't need to say who it's done by. And in this case, in Spanish, the most common way of saying the passive, using the passive, is with se. Se habla español. Spanish is spoken. And you'll notice the word order is different from English. It might help to think of the construction as one speaks Spanish here, one speaks Spanish here. That'll just help you remember the word order. Okay, so let's have a practice. So we'll start off obviously with se, and we'll have habla, and we'll have aprende for learn. So se aprende is it is learnt, or one learns if we try what I was saying before. Se hace, so hace is do or make. So se hace, it is done or it is made. Se gasta, gastar is spend, to spend. So gasta, spend. Se gasta is spent or it's spent. And then we'll mix them up a bit and have queso, cheese, mucho dinero, a lot of money, español, and that's it. And then we'll just have aquí for here. Okay, so how would you say Spanish is learnt here? Spanish is learnt here. So again, think of one learns Spanish here. What would that be? Se aprende español aquí. Se aprende español aquí. How about cheese is made here? Cheese is made here. One makes cheese here. What would that be? Se hace queso aquí. Se hace queso aquí. How about a lot of money is spent here? A lot of money is spent here. What would that be? Se gasta mucho dinero aquí. Se gasta mucho dinero aquí. So one spends a lot of money here. Now if it's plural, so things are made here, so are made, are learnt, are bought, are sold, then we have to make our verb plural as well. Make it the they version. So let's see, for example, earlier we saw se aprende español. Spanish is learnt. If we want to say, let's say lots of things, many things are learnt here. Many things are learnt here. Muchas cosas, many things. So we would have to say se aprenden muchas cosas aquí. Se aprenden muchas cosas aquí. So now that we're talking about they are learnt, then our verb also needs to be they. So se aprenden muchas cosas aquí. So let's put that into practice. We'll start off with our se again, and then we'll have venden. So vender, sell. Venden is the they version. Compran, from buy, comprar, so they buy, the they version. And apagan, apagar is to turn off. Apagan, they turn off. And then we'll have casas, houses, and las luces, the lights. Las luces, the lights. So how would you say houses are bought? So one buys houses. What would that be? Se compran casas. Se compran casas. So houses are bought very cheaply here, for example. How would you say the lights are turned off? So it could be the lights are turned off at 9 p.m. What would that be? Se apagan las luces. Se apagan las luces. Se apagan las luces. The lights are turned off. How about the houses are sold? The houses are sold. So it could be the houses are sold to rich foreigners, whatever it might be. So how would you say the houses are sold? Se venden las casas. Se venden las casas. Now obviously we could also say that something was done, not just in the present. We could say it was done. So it was painted. Well, let's talk about the house again, or the houses. The house was painted. So we might say the house was painted last year. It's a passive. We're not interested in who it was painted by, just that it was done last year. So again, we would use the se, and it'd be in the past, so it'd be se pintó. Se pintó la casa el año pasado, for example. The house was painted last year. Okay, so let's have a little practice. We're going to mix together now. We'll do the past, but we'll do for singular and plural. So we'll have la casa and las casas. So se pintó and pintaron. They painted. We can have vendió, sold. Vendieron, they sold. It's going to be with se. It's going to be se vendieron, they were sold. Let's also have perdió, lost. Perdieron, they lost. So we'll have it was lost and they were lost. And so we've got la casa, las casas. Let's have la joya and las joyas. So the jewel or gem, and the plural jewels, or it could be gems. Okay, so how would we say the houses were painted? The houses were painted. I haven't added in the time phrases, but it could be el año pasado. So the houses were painted. What would that be? Se pintaron las casas. Se pintaron las casas. How about the house was sold? The house was sold last year again, for example. What would that be? Se vendió la casa. Se vendió la casa. You could say se vendió la casa hace 2 años, 2 years ago. How about the jewels were lost? The jewels were lost, or the gems were lost. What would that be? Se perdieron las joyas. Se perdieron las joyas. How about the gem was sold? The gem was sold. Se vendió la joya. Se vendió la joya. Now we've practiced with the present and just now the past, but obviously it could be any tense. So it could be the house will be sold. Se venderá la casa. Just the future. So all we need to remember is the se and the verb in the right tense, and either the plural version, the they version, or the he, she, it version, the singular, depending on whether we're talking about something singular or plural. And as I mentioned at the beginning, to help you with the kind of construction in your head, it helps to think of it as one does this. One sold the house. The house was sold. Even though obviously we wouldn't say it like that in English, it just kind of helps. Now, as mentioned earlier, with all these examples that we've gone through with se, we can't say who the action was done by. So, let's say we're talking about se habla español aquí. Se habla español aquí. Spanish is spoken here. We're not saying who Spanish is spoken by, because if you go back to the way I said to help think about the construction, one speaks Spanish here, it would not be possible to say one speaks Spanish here by the receptionist, for example. You could say Spanish is spoken by the receptionist, but in that case you couldn't use the se, the one speaks kind of version. Now in the case of Spanish is spoken here, we don't really need to know who it's spoken by, just that it is spoken here, and that's where the focus is. But sometimes we do want to focus on who something has been done by. So, for example, the picture was painted by Picasso. We need that in this particular sentence. It's very, very relevant who it was painted by. And in that case, we couldn't use the one paints a picture type construction. Se pintó. We wouldn't be able to use that here. We would say fue pintado por Picasso. Fue, it was. Pintado, painted. Por, by Picasso. Fue pintado por Picasso. It was painted by Picasso. Fue escrito por Lorca. It was written by Lorca. Again, we couldn't say one wrote this. We're interested in who it was written by. Fue escrito por Lorca. It was written by Lorca. And if it's plural, we need to make everything plural as well. We need to say, for example, las casas, the houses, fueron, were, pintadas, painted. So we've got the plural, pintadas, we've got the feminine, pintadas, por mi hermano. Let's say the houses were painted by my brother. Las casas fueron pintadas por mi hermano. Okay, so let's have a mixed practice here of masculine, feminine, and singular and plural. So we'll have la casa and las casas. El cuadro, the picture or the painting. El cuadro and los cuadros, the pictures. And we'll have el poema and los poemas, and la novela and las novelas, the novel and the novels. And fue, so was, the house was painted, the picture was painted. And fueron, were painted or were written. So fueron. And then we'll have pintado. So we can have pintado, we can have pintados, we can have pintada and pintadas, depending on whether it's masculine, feminine, masculine, plural, feminine, plural. And then the same with escrito, escritos, escrita, escritas, and then we'll have por Picasso, Carmen, and Lorca. Okay, how would you say the poem was written by Carmen? El poema fue escrito por Carmen. El poema fue escrito por Carmen. How about the novel was written by Picasso? Not sure if that was ever true. I don't think so. but let's try it anyway. The novel was written by Picasso. What would that be? La novela fue escrita por Picasso. La novela fue escrita por, because it's feminine, the novel, la novela, por Picasso. How about the poems were written by Lorca? The poems were written by Lorca. Los poemas fueron escritos por Lorca. Los poemas fueron escritos por Lorca. How about the houses were painted by Carmen? Las casas fueron pintadas por Carmen. Las casas fueron pintadas por Carmen. And obviously we could have all the different tenses here. So we could have will be painted, so será pintado. We could have has been painted, ha sido pintado. We could have will have been painted, habrá sido pintado or escrito. So going back to the very beginning, se habla español aquí. Spanish is spoken here. The se type of passive is the most common by far in Spanish, much more common. And we can use it whenever we're not saying who something is done by. And we can remember the construction as one does this. Although remembering that if the thing is plural, so the houses are painted, or the houses were built, then we just need to make that verb plural as well. Se construyeron las casas, the houses were built. One built the houses, plural. But we also learnt that when we need to say who it was done by, then we need the passive, which is a much closer construction to what we're used to in English. So, el poema fue escrito por Lorca. The poem was written by Lorca. Or, la joya fue robada por Picasso. I can't think of a famous jewel thief offhand, so we'll have to say la joya fue robada por Picasso. So the jewel was robbed by Picasso, and it's important to know that it was done by Picasso.